I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, Education and Science. The Brain's Body is a revolutionary new book by Christopher K. Slaton, exploring the intersections of education, science, and personal development. Using his extensive research on human systems and the concept of self, Dr. Slaton guides viewers on a journey of self-discovery and growth, teaching them how to improve their brain, body, and senses for the betterment of themselves and those around them. We're delighted to have Dr. Slaton on Spotlight today. We ask those watching to support writers and creators like him by subscribing to our channel. Doctor, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you. This is an amazing experience, and I'm glad to be here,
Well,
especially with you.
true pleasure having you, that's for sure. Your book is a fascinating one. It tackles a lot of complex topics in a very easy to understand way, which is what's great about it. It's very accessible to the reader. Tell us a little bit about the relationship that you find between education, science, and personal development.
Wow, that's a good question because the education and science piece is really key when you look at education. And what I'm trying to do there is I'm trying to get everyone to understand. I'm talking about the parents, teachers that I work with that know my work. They know that education has informed the brain. And that if you inform the brain, you discipline the body, which is the science. So education and science simply means whenever you pick up my literature, it refers to education to inform the brain and science to discipline the body, and then the process of focus, which is the brain's body, so that you are able to perform at a certain level, but then go to another level because you understand everything you do to move through contact, interaction, and cooperation in this environment of contact with self and other people requires another level that's within you that has to come forth. So when you're doing the brain work and it hurts because you're dealing with emotion, dealing with thought, you're dealing with reflection, you're dealing with, wow, reaction and response simultaneously all at the same time, and it has to balance itself out. Those are the levels I'll talk about through the experience of experiencing these experiences. So that's what it means in terms of human development, because you can't stop trying to live each day to become more informed as a person.
And this book is born out of your work. Tell us a little bit about your work, your career, and the development of this book.
Well, it starts with just working with children that are in crises because their parents were exposed or used and abused drugs while they were in utero or after utero. And when I came in contact with them, they were just in crises, and you had to do a lot of problem solving, but you had to do a lot of research. So you had to really get into the schools. And I must have attended maybe 500 IEP sessions through a period of, say, 2002 to say about 2010, where I'm learning to understand what's happening to these children and how they're being missed in the diagnostic system because drug-related disorders aren't necessarily classified. You have to establish the criteria. That's what the brain's body is actually saying. It's saying that after all these things, working with these children and these parents in crises and going to these IEPs where they never mention sensory received past functions, but that's what they're talking about when they say they're trying to assess a kid's ability to perform in a classroom. You're talking about how they sense, feel, and focus the brain. And so they didn't talk about these things. That's what I was talking about. And then the fact that we were able to do family history, look at the family history, look at the medical records, look at the sociological aspects. So if I'm dealing with a kid that's already in high school, I can still look at their social record and come up with ways to talk inside those IEPs to get them to understand this is not a normal situation. This is a situation where you have to look at this kid in relation to the environment as a major life event that has impacted them. And that shifted because now you're talking about teachers who are in the classroom with these children, whom, and if they're an overabundant amount of children with these types of disabilities in your classroom that aren't classified, you have a behavior issue in your classroom. You can't even function. When I come in, they're initially looking at me thinking I'm there to, finger them out. No, no, no. I came in with the intent to help the kid, help the teacher, help them. Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get this kid to relax and understand it's the fact that you are uncomfortable. You were uncomfortable fighting the breath of life. We don't have to go on all that. But the nuts and bolts is this teacher wanted my help as much as the kid needed my help. So the transition from the child to the parent to the teacher was simultaneously because teachers began to ask me questions. And so I began to gain momentum that way because I was able to help them understand that you can't just discipline a kid that's already hurt because their consequential path, that feedback from reflection isn't working. Right. So you can punish them all you want. They're not going to recognize the punishment. And they're going to get worse because you got to talk to their brain. You got to talk to their brain and let them see you because they can feel you with their eyes. They may not feel you internally, but they can see you and observe you. And that's the first thing I'm teaching these kids is how to study the action of another person so they can calm down and realize that person's not a threat to you. That person's not threatening you. It is you who has to calm down and watch how they respond to you as you change your behavior pattern. As a kid changes his or her behavior pattern, the teacher then can see what I'm talking about as this path that they're open to learning, but you can't take that and use the kid as an example in the classroom. So these were the things that really led me on this path. And so what we're talking about when I'm talking to a child, a parent, I'm talking about self-research, self-discovery, right? And then at the same time, self-help, because you got to go through all those things to believe that you have the capacity as an injured person, because parents are injured too when they're working with a kid that's troubled or difficult, high need or special.
Yeah, I mean, children who have the kind of problems that you talk about are punished all the time. And there is a fine line between punishment and abuse in the minds of a child because they're used to being treated in extreme ways. I think educators and parents and administrators have to realize that there's a difference between a well-disciplined child and a punished child, don't you think?
Absolutely. I believe that. But if you look at it scientifically, when you use the word discipline, it's used in multiple different ways. When I use the word discipline, I'm talking about focusing the brain to manage the body and the senses. So that if you teach a child that their focus is connected to their body and they can see their body, and when they look at another person, that person's looking at them, and if they present their body a certain way, that's like a mirror. Now you got your data. You can calm down because that's what discipline is. It is the ability for you to interact with another person and stay calm as you're going through the experience of self and the other person. So the information get through you. Yes.
Who's your intended audience for this book? Is it educators, teachers, parents, all of the above?
It's first is children, parents, teachers, health and human service professionals, because human system science is what's driving this whole scheme. And human system science is science built from actual hands-on experience with other human beings in crises and moving with them to levels of problem solving. The amount of kids that I've gotten through the grade school system, whom I have one kid who just graduated, my last kid out of Merced, and her experience was coming into the school system, failing from kindergarten all the way through to where I met her when she was 9 years old. Consistent failing grades, and nothing was being done for that kid. That kid graduated on time, right? After being socially promoted all those years, but she was able to adjust to the experience of having a safe place. And from that safe place, she evolved because she didn't resist education. She just didn't understand it. So when the school and the teachers and all of them came together and began to say, we got to work with this kid, because I wrote it up. I notified the state of California, for example, Department of Education. They got involved. They walked this kid to the high school diploma. And this kid was remarkable She was not a threat or violence to anyone, but she was hurt and damaged on the inside. But she got through without hurting anyone. And now she's out there in the community doing good stuff with a high school diploma. Well, I get reports from her grandmother who's telling me that she's doing very, very well in her life after high school. And many of my kids, that is the story, because if you can get a kid through that rigorous school system, adult life changes because it's more social than academic and it's more economic. So the kid can fit in, they can go to work, and they can get that support system that they didn't have in school, because now they're adults and you don't look at them based upon test scores and grades, and that's behind. So all they got to do now is what we're talking about, the human system science. Show your talent, be on time, appear to be focused, be willing to do what you have to do to be successful physically, mentally, and emotionally. Yes.
Yeah. It's great, all great advice. I used to tell my children, always be on time, because that is the one tangible thing that people can hold against you. It's a definitive. You're either there on time or you're not. So I think that's an important part of the discipline approach. You know, Mark Twain famously said, all my life has been a learning experience, except those years I spent in school. Do you feel like school needs to be reinvented, that it fails a lot of children, intelligent children who tend to be verbal, who tend to be creative?
I do, but when I look at the school system, it's programmed, and it has to be programmed because you have so many different brains to fit in one classroom, that if you allow a process to drive it, then how would you get anything done? Because then it's like discovery, self-discovery, everybody's trying to create. But now in the 21st century, with everything going virtual, it makes a lot more sense to change the educational system like you're suggesting. Why? Because everything now is open and it's processed, because you have to be able to do things in multiple environments alone with other people, and then you have to create. Like for us to have this conversation, you created the platform.
Right.
This is the new life these children have to move through. So yes, I agree. The school system does have to include process. An example of process would be when a kid's sent to school, they're sent there to receive, organize, and express their feelings academically. Today, they have to be allowed to go to school, sense, feel, and focus to receive, organize, and express. But there's another level. You have to receive, process, and respond to it, which means you got to, here's your feelings, that's your expression. Now receive, process, and respond to that. Because that is what you're really looking at, is that third level of participation that says, this is my education, this is what I'm doing with it. On the spot, that's 21st century. Kids got to be able to practice and put it in play right now. Otherwise, they're caught up in the virtual world.
You know, I think if educators adopted your approach, they would get a lot of personal satisfaction, because they'd be doing their job the right way. They'd be helping these children on their journey to self-development in a much more profound way than many schools are treating children today.
I couldn't have said it better. You're right on. Yes, absolutely. It's so fascinating. It really is. You learn that when you walk into these environments, they want the help because they want their job to be easier. But again, it's program versus process. You get worn down when you have the old guard, right?
Right.
That is saying no because I'm not ready to do all that work. But these young teachers, they know if I don't do the work, then I'm going to leave this field because it's just too gut-wrenching to not be able to talk to these kids in such a way that gets them to understand we are not the enemy. This is the past, this is the future. You have to step into the future, but they got to be able to, that's process. They got to be able to teach them through process so that it complements the program, but it allows the kid to understand you get to create and discover who you are in the process and not postpone self-interest until after you get through high school, because we have to see discipline, and you have to follow and respond to these rigorous words and language systems that we are scoring you based on. And all our testing systems are based upon these words and knowledge areas. So you can't go outside that box. But I'm saying again, the internet is outside that box. The virtual world outside that box. These kids are being slowly hurt by not having an education system be changed to complement the real world experiences that they're going through in the classroom, because I'm receiving reports all the time. Can't get the kid off the internet, go in class. So yes, I couldn't have said it better.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, thank you, Doctor. For the folks at home, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a professional educator, an administrator, if you are looking for a roadmap to the educational future, look no further than Dr. Christopher K. Slaton's book. It is called Education and Science, the Brain's Body. It is quite a wonderful exploration of the intersections of education, science, and personal development. Dr. Slaton, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Well, Mr. Crawford, I want to thank you for this wonderful experience. I really, really enjoyed it. Thanks to you. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad you did. I enjoyed it as well. I appreciate all of your insight and hard work. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.